My name is Ava Thompson, and at 22, I never imagined my college graduation would turn into the ultimate moment of triumph. Standing beside my brother Ethan in our matching caps and gowns should have been purely a celebration, but years of being overlooked had led to this day. Their dismissive words still echo in my mind. He deserved it. But you didn't. The memory of that evening when my parents chose to invest only in my brother still burns. Before I share what left my parents stunned at our graduation, let me know where you're listening from in the comments. And hit that like button if you've ever had to work twice as hard for something others got easily. I grew up in a typical middle-class family in suburban Ohio. Our cozy ranch-style home with its neatly trimmed lawn looked idyllic, complete with family photos masking the tension beneath. My parents, James and Laura Thompson, held steady jobs, dad as a financial advisor, mom as a middle school math teacher. We weren't rich, but we were stable enough that money worries shouldn't have shaped my future. My brother Ethan, 2 years younger, always seemed to outshine me in our parents' eyes. With his sharp wit, flawless grades, and soccer star status, he was everything they cherished. From childhood, the pattern was obvious. Ethan was the favored one, and I was an afterthought. I still remember birthday parties where Ethan got the latest gadgets while I received practical gifts like notebooks or second-hand books. Your brother needs more support for his talents, Mom would say when I asked about the difference. Even at 10, I saw the unfairness but learned to hide my frustration. School events only widened the gap. For Ethan's soccer games, both parents would rearrange their schedules, cheering loudly from the sidelines. For my debate tournaments, I was lucky if Dad sent a quick text wishing me luck. Debate's just a pastime. Ava, Dad would say, it won't lead to a real career. The only person who truly saw me was my grandfather, Henry. During summer visits to his cabin in the woods, he'd sit with me as I wrote stories under the trees. You have a unique voice. Ava, he'd say, don't let anyone silence it. Those summers with Grandpa Henry became my refuge. In his small study, I found books about trailblazing writers and innovators who overcame barriers, sparking dreams of proving my worth in ways my parents couldn't ignore. By high school, I'd built a tough exterior out of necessity. I joined every writing and journalism club, excelling in English and creative writing, surprising even my toughest teachers. When I won a statewide essay contest as a freshman, my English teacher, Ms. Carter, called my parents to praise my work. That's nice, Mom said after hanging up. Did you help Ethan with his science homework? He's got a big test tomorrow, in my junior year. I worked evenings at a local bookstore to save money. Sensing I'd need my own funds later, I kept a 4.0 GPA despite 20-hour work weeks. Meanwhile, Ethan joined the math team, becoming its star, with my parents attending every meet and hosting celebratory dinners for his wins. By senior year, Ethan and I were both applying to colleges. Despite our age difference, Ethan had skipped a grade, putting us in the same class. We both applied to Crestwood University, renowned for its journalism and engineering programs. When acceptance letters arrived on the same day, my hands shook as I opened mine. I got in. I announced at dinner, my voice brimming with pride. Full acceptance to the journalism program. Dad barely looked up from his tablet. That's good, Ava. Moments later, Ethan rushed in, waving his letter. I got into Crestwood's engineering program, he shouted. My parents' faces lit up. Mom hugged him. Dad clapped his back, and dinner turned into an impromptu party with sparkling juice and toasts. We always knew you'd do it, Dad said to Ethan, as if my news hadn't been shared minutes earlier. 2 weeks later, a family dinner changed everything. Phones were set aside, a rare occurrence. We need to discuss college plans, Dad said, looking only at Ethan. We've saved for your education since you were little. Crestwood's tuition is high, but we'll cover it so you can focus on your studies. Ethan grinned as I waited for my turn, assuming they'd saved for both of us. The silence grew heavy until I spoke up. What about my tuition? I asked softly. My parents exchanged uneasy glances. Ava, Mom said carefully, We only have enough for one, and Ethan's shown more promise. We think investing in him will pay off more. Dad nodded. You're practical, Ava. You can handle loans or maybe start at a community college. Their words hit like a slap. He deserved it, but you didn't. The betrayal cut deeper than all the years of smaller slights. That night, I cried alone in my room, the weight of their rejection crushing me. My 4.0 essay awards and Crestwood acceptance meant nothing to them. I'd never been enough. The next morning, I faced them in the living room. How could you save for Ethan but not me? I asked, my voice cracking. Dad sighed. Ava, we had to make tough choices with limited funds. But I have better grades than Ethan, I argued. I've worked part-time for years while keeping perfect academics. How is that not dedication? Mom folded her arms. Ethan's focused on academics. You're spread thin with your writing clubs and that job. Besides, journalism is risky. You never asked about my goals. I whispered. Look, Dad said, we'll help with loan applications. Lots of students pay their own way. The conversation ended there. They'd made their choice. I was less worthy. That weekend, I drove to Grandpa Henry's cabin, pouring out my story. He listened quietly, his steady gaze grounding me. My brave girl, he said, wiping my tears. Sometimes life's hardest moments spark the greatest change. Your parents are wrong about you, but you've got grit they can't see. He couldn't offer money, his pension barely covered his needs, but his belief in me was priceless. Promise me you'll go to Crestwood anyway, he urged. Don't let their limits stop you. That night, I decided I'd attend Crestwood with Ethan, finance my education, and graduate no matter what. I spent weeks applying for scholarships, grants, and work-study programs. My counselor, Ms. Lopez, stayed late to guide me through financial aid forms. I've rarely seen such determination, she said after my 20th scholarship application. I secured small scholarships, but not enough for Crestwood's steep tuition, with federal loans and a private loan co-signed by Grandpa Henry. I covered my first year, while Ethan got a fully funded dorm room. I found a cramped apartment 40 minutes from campus with 2 roommates from an online forum. I landed jobs at a campus cafe and a library, working 25 hours weekly. My parents helped Ethan shop for a new laptop and dorm supplies, throwing him a big send-off party. I packed my things in used boxes and drove myself to campus in my creaky old sedan. On move-in day, they dropped Ethan off in the family van while I navigated alone to my apartment. Good luck, Ava. Mom called as we parted. I hope it works out. Her doubt only fueled my resolve. My apartment was rough, leaky faucets, thin walls, and noisy neighbors. That first night, alone on a lumpy mattress, doubt crept in. Could I handle 25-hour work weeks and a full course load? A text from Grandpa Henry steadied me. Remember, brave girl, stars shine brightest in the darkest skies. You're already glowing. I made a strict schedule, sacrificing sleep and socializing to prioritize my studies and jobs. The financial aid office became my lifeline. Ms. Carter, an aid advisor, took an interest in my situation. You're taking on a lot, she said. Promise you'll come to me before it gets too much. That promise saved me many times. The day before classes, Ms. Lopez called with news my high school's English department had pooled $800 for a scholarship. It's small, they said, but we believe in you. Ava, freshman year was relentless. I woke at 5 a.m. to study, worked cafe shifts before classes, and shelved books at the library until midnight. I studied on buses, wrote essays during breaks, and listened to recorded lectures while cleaning tables. Ethan's life, glimpsed through social media, was all frat parties and weekend trips home. I was budgeting for ramen versus textbooks, but something surprising happened. I thrived in my journalism classes. Years of self-reliance and part-time work gave me a practical edge. My classmates struggled with deadlines, but I'd been managing chaos for years. Professor Hayes, my media ethics teacher, praised my work. Your analysis of bias in reporting is exceptional. Ava, It shows real-world insight. I also found an unexpected ally in my roommate, Mia. She noticed my grueling schedule and started leaving snacks labeled with my name. One night, exhausted, I found her waiting up. "You'll collapse before finals," she said, handing me coffee. When I shared my story, she was outraged. "That's not right," she declared. "From now on, I'm your family here." Mia proofread my articles, quizzed me for exams, and guarded my study time. When she learned I skipped meals to save money, she cooked extra, refusing payment beyond help with her own assignments. "Family looks out for each other," she said. "And sometimes the family we choose matters more." Sophomore year brought a crisis. The cafe cut my hours by 30%, wrecking my budget. With rent and tuition due, I panicked but remembered Ms. Carter. She found me a small emergency grant and connected me with Professor Hayes, who offered a paid research assistant role in the journalism department. The job's flexible hours and intellectual work were a game changer. Working with Professor Hayes, I studied digital media trends, which sparked an idea. Using my journalism skills, I launched a freelance content creation service for local businesses. Late nights built a website and service packages based on my research. By junior year, my business earned enough to quit the library job, and I kept the research role for mentorship. My confidence grew. In class, I shared real-world insights, earning respect from professors and peers. Ethan and I stayed polite but distant. He invited me to campus events I couldn't attend due to work. Our parents called him weekly, but only texted me on holidays. During one spring break, I couldn't afford to go home. Mom texted, "We miss you, but we know you're busy with your projects." My achievements mounted Dean's List every semester, journalism awards, and a presentation at a national media conference. By junior year's end, my content business served 12 clients and employed 2 classmates part-time. Professor Hayes nominated me for the Crestwood Journalism Scholarship, covering my senior year tuition. "Your grit defines our program's spirit," she said. Senior year brought momentum. My business grew to 18 clients and 3 employees, featured in a regional media journal. Professor Hayes suggested I enter the National Collegiate Media Innovation Contest, with a $40,000 prize and industry exposure. I refined my pitch, focusing on affordable content solutions for small businesses. Meanwhile, Ethan struggled with his engineering capstone, his reliance on talent over discipline showing. One evening, Ethan showed up at my apartment, stressed and carrying notes, my capstones falling apart. He admitted, "The professor says my design lacks rigor, and I might not graduate." Despite past resentment, I saw a chance to bridge our gap. "Come in," I said. "Let's figure it out." Helping Ethan, I realized my self-taught skills outpaced his. We worked together, and he opened up. "How do you manage it all?" he asked. "Your business, perfect grades, research." I shared my exhausting reality, 60-hour weeks, skipped meals, no social life. "I had no idea." He said, "Mom and Dad said you were fine." "Fine's relative." I replied. Our talks deepened our bond. Ethan began refusing parental handouts, wanting to emulate my independence. By spring, he was on track to graduate, and we'd built a real sibling connection. The journalism dean, Dr. Patel, invited me to speak at graduation, citing my journey as an inspiration. I accepted, unaware of her bigger plans. In April, I won the media contest, earning praise and a feature in the university paper. Grandpa Henry called, tearfully proud. My parents didn't mention it. At graduation rehearsal, Dr. Patel hinted at a surprise before my speech. The ceremony was electric, with families filling the auditorium. My parents sat up front, eyes on Ethan. Grandpa Henry's gaze stayed on me. After degrees were conferred, the president called me to speak. I shared my story working 25 hours weekly, building a business, graduating with honors. I spoke of resilience and defining your own worth. The crowd roared. Then, the president announced I was valedictorian with a 4.0, had won the national contest, and did it all self-funded. He revealed my job offer from Horizon Media Group and a feature in Media Innovate magazine. The audience stood, applauding. My parents' faces paled as the crowd learned they hadn't supported me. Ethan clapped fiercely, tears in his eyes. Grandpa Henry beamed. The president announced the Ava Thompson Determination Scholarship for students overcoming obstacles, cementing my legacy. Post-ceremony, my parents stood stiffly. Dad tried. Quite a surprise. "Ava, you kept this quiet." "I didn't," I said calmly. "You didn't ask." Ethan stepped forward. "Everyone's talking about Ava's speech," he said loudly. "She did this without help. Imagine if she'd had what I got." Mom flinched. "We should talk privately," Dad said. "I have a celebration with my real supporters." I replied. Grandpa Henry joined Ethan and me at the journalism department's reception, where mentors and peers celebrated my journey. My new boss at Horizon Media praised my work. Ethan marveled at my network. "You built a family here," he said. Later, Mom texted about a family dinner. Grandpa scoffed. But Ethan suggested we go to show them who I'd become. At the dinner, relatives praised my achievements, questioning my parents' oversight. Ethan called out their favoritism. "You bet on me and ignored Ava." He said, "You were wrong." Mom admitted fault, tears falling. "We made mistakes," she said. I nodded. Impact outweighs intent. The dinner shifted family dynamics. My success undeniable. Weeks later, I started at Horizon Media, my business now managed by my team. The magazine feature showcased my journey, inspiring others. My parents sought reconciliation, admitting they misjudged me. I agreed to a new relationship, grounded in truth. Ethan took a job in sustainable engineering, inspired by my drive. At Grandpa Henry's cabin, he gave me a pendant from his mother, symbolizing inner worth. "Your path was tough," he said, "but it forged someone remarkable." I founded the Ava Thompson Scholarship for resilient students, ensuring others had the support I lacked. My parents attended the announcement, showing new pride. My bond with Ethan grew, free of old comparisons. He asked if I'd forgive our parents. Forgiveness is a process. I said, "It's about letting go of what can't change. I don't think I'll ever forget being told I wasn't worth investing in." I continued honestly, "But I'm working toward not letting that moment define my relationship with them going forward. That's the forgiveness I'm capable of right now." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "For what it's worth, their greatest loss was not knowing who you really were all those years." As I looked out over the vast landscape below us, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. From the devastated teenager hearing, "He deserved it, but you didn't," to the accomplished professional creating opportunities for others. The transformation wasn't just in my circumstances, but in my fundamental understanding of self-worth. The real victory wasn't proving my parents wrong, though that satisfaction was undeniable. The deeper triumph was discovering that their assessment had never actually defined me. I had always been capable, valuable, and worthy of investment. Their failure to see it reflected their limitations, not mine. Perhaps that's the most powerful realization for anyone who has been underestimated or dismissed. Your value exists independently of others' ability to recognize it. The opinions that limited you speak to the imagination deficits of others, not to your inherent potential. In the end, being underestimated became my greatest advantage. It forced me to develop resilience, self-reliance, and determination that served me long after the initial injury had healed. The very qualities my parents failed to nurture became the foundation of a success they couldn't have envisioned, not because I wasn't capable, but because their vision was too limited to encompass who I could become. Have you ever been underestimated by those whose opinions seemed to matter most? How did you prove your worth to yourself? Share your story below. And if my journey of overcoming family expectations resonated, like and subscribe. Sometimes, those who doubt you most push you to soar far beyond their limited vision. Thank you for joining me, and may my story inspire you to embrace your inherent worth, no matter who fails to see it.